how powerful they were. It was their way of saying, "Check how much cash I've got. I can put up the biggest building in the world. Aren't I brilliant? You can't do it, you dummy." Who invented pyramids? Thousands of years ago, when the people of our planet were ignorant and stupid, alien fishmen flew their spaceships down to Earth, landed in Egypt, built a pyramid, and then flew off again. Actually, that's not true. Once upon a time, a terrible flood engulfed the great city of Atlantis. The handsome giants who lived there escaped to Egypt, erected a pyramid like their ones back home in Atlantis, then disappeared. That's not true either. For thousands of years, though, people have been making up stories like this because they couldn't believe ordinary human beings were smart enough to build them. But here is the truth. The ancient Egyptians built them all by themselves. And remember, they didn't have cranes or cement mixers or power drills like modern builders. They had to do it all by hand. It took them a long time to learn how to make a proper pyramid, though. Their first attempts were frankly a bit lame. They were made out of mud bricks and were big and rectangular, like giant doorsteps. In fact, they were called mastabas, which comes from the Arabic word meaning bench, because that's what people who'd never seen a doorstep thought they looked like. They certainly weren't very dramatic or stylish. But then one day, an architect called Imhotep decided to try something a bit different. He built a mastaba out of stone. Then he built another smaller one on top of it, then another even smaller one on top of that one, and he kept going until he'd built 6 mastabas, one on top of the other. A bit like Lego. If Lego blocks were made of limestone instead of plastic, were over a metre high and didn't have those knobbly bits on them. What he'd created was the first pyramid. It's called a step pyramid, for obvious reasons. Step pyramids became all the rage. Every pharaoh wanted one, and they all wanted theirs to be bigger and better than the last one. Then along came a pharaoh called Snefru. Quite a lot of pharaohs had weird-sounding names. You just have to accept that they sounded ordinary to Egyptians. He decided he wanted to have something even more flash, a pyramid that was smooth rather than one with stepped sides. This was obviously much trickier than plonking stone blocks on top of each other, and no one really knew how to do it. They started by building quite a steep-sided pyramid, but then halfway through they had to change the angle to prevent it collapsing, so what they ended up with was a very wonky pyramid. Miraculously, it's still there today. It's actually known as the bent pyramid. But Snefru wasn't happy with his bent pyramid, and you can't blame him. He told the builders to go away and think of something else, and being the pharaoh, they didn't argue with him. So they built another one, known as the Red Pyramid, because of the reddish stone used to make them. This time they got the angle right, and the Red Pyramid was the first true pyramid. Whew. When he died, Snefru was buried in his red pyramid, and his son Khufu became pharaoh. And guess what? Khufu immediately started work on his own pyramid. It was a great time to be a pyramid builder. You were never out of work. Khufu's was the fanciest pyramid ever constructed, the Great Pyramid. It was built using 2.3 million blocks of stone, and although today it's a muddy brown colour, originally, it would have been covered in polished white limestone and capped in gold. This would have reflected the sunlight and made it shine for miles around. It probably made the locals wish sunglasses had been invented. A very ancient Egyptian gag. Pharaoh Snefru is said to have been the subject of one of the oldest recorded jokes. Question: how do you put a smile on the face of a bored pharaoh? Answer: sail a boatload of young women dressed in nothing but fishing nets down the Nile.